So all of us have different experiences. Everybody here has some short term, at least something that they've done a little bit of. Others have gone out longer, others have gone to other places. But what we want to do in this class is to prepare you to do more of those things, but ultimately to go long term. That's really my desire for everyone, is to go long term. And as Mimi mentioned, there's ministry here in America. There's no doubt about that. So if God called you to minister cross-culturally at home, please do so. That's what we want to prepare you for, is to realize that other people think different, they were raised different, they think about the Lord, they read His Word different than we do, at least if you're born and raised here, as I would speak of myself as a Californian. But the Lord and His Word are universal. And so in this class, we want to be able to take our minds and say, Lord, make me a heavenly Christian, not just a California Christian or a Brazilian Christian or a Filipino Christian, but make me a heavenly Christian. So wherever you put me, that's where I can become the most useful. So thank you for embarrassing yourselves and doing that. That just simply was to break the ice and to let you all know that we're all in this together. So talk to each other during the break and really connect. Well, just some basic things about Bible college. If you are a new student, these things might be a little overwhelming to you. If you're a returning student, hopefully you've worked through these things. Populi is our program that we use for the school. So if you go on the college website, then you click on Populi, you'll go into your profile, and then inside of your profile, you'll find our class. And so any questions that you have about the class can be found, of course, on Populi. And I'm pointing out that under the Information tab, there is our syllabus down there under the files that have been downloaded onto that. That's our syllabus. That tells you when your homework's due. Everything you need to know about the class is located in the syllabus. It's scattered throughout the Populi system under our class, but that would be the easiest way to say what's due, when do I need to do it, how does it need to be written. All of those questions can be answered there. You have that in paper in front of you, so let's just quickly review just a few things about the syllabus so that you understand it. In the front of the syllabus is my contact. Of course, my name is Pastor Rob. My last name is Douglas. My phone number and my email are there. Call me, text me, email me, any questions you have. There's not like a wall between students and teachers here. We're all in this together. Communicate with me. Don't hesitate. If you need to know something, just send me out a text or whatever you would need to do. Of course, the class runs from today, which is February 2nd, 2016, all the way through till May 17th. There are 2 books that are required for the course. Some people have thought that there was 1 book and the other one was optional. In this course, it's actually 2 books. We're going to review both of those books. I'll show you why they're both required. But just to point that out, there are 2 books required, so make sure you have those. They are available in the back, unless you've already ordered them online. The second page of the syllabus, if you turn the page with me, you'll see that there are a few things that are required. The first one would be our weekly readings. Every week you'll be reading chapters from both books, and maybe some weeks from one book or the other book, depending upon the subjects covered in each book. And so you'll see that 50% of your grade, this is why we're taking the time to talk about it, it's very important, your weekly reading is half of your grade. So if you just don't read the book, and then you do both of your final and your midterm, you'll still only get 50%. So you've got to read your books, you've got to be focused on that, and then we'll talk about those books more in a moment. And then the other part of your grade, 25%, is going to be your midterm. I want you to write these papers in a way where I'm hearing your heart. I'm not looking for Greek definitions. I'm not looking for all kinds of history and all kinds of things. I just want to hear your heart. I want to know that what we're talking about is beginning to be implanted into your heart and that God is doing something in you. So some of us will write in a way that, let's just say we're a young American, we've never been overseas, we'll write from that perspective. Last semester, I think our oldest student, Cliff, was like 68 or something. He was a lot older. His paper was so rich and so deep, I wanted to print it and give it to everybody, but I didn't want to, I didn't want to embarrass him. So my point is that some of you will write intense papers, others of you will write very, simple papers. Just show me your heart. I want to know what God's doing. And so that first midterm paper, and we'll begin discussing this as the time gets closer, is going to be due on April 1st, and the descriptions are there. in there. You can read about that later. And then the last portion of your grade is going to be your final paper, which is also 25%. So 50% reading, 25% midterm. The other 25% is going to be your final paper, and that will be due on May 18th. Read through that after class tomorrow and begin praying about that. And so your syllabus is going to always be on Populi. If we have any changes, we'll update that for you. Now on the next page of your syllabus is our class schedule. Turn with me to that third page of the syllabus. This has changed since we printed the papers that are in front of you. I originally had Jeff Jackson, which is one of our missions trainers, scheduled to come next week and the week after, but he's been struggling with a disease that he has where his body starts shutting down and his throat is not working, so he can't teach at the moment. And so if you know Jeff from last semester and previous semesters, he's one of the best missions teachers I know. I love him. He's discipled me for years. He called me last minute. He said, Rob, I can't make it, so you're going to have to cover my classes. So you'll see in the printed form, it says Jeff, but in this one, Jeff's not going to be able to make it, so we've switched things up a little bit. Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not break. What is missions and culture? Endless flexibility. So that's there for the teachers. That might change, but the next column over, the reading that's due, that won't change at all. That won't change whatsoever. Look through this every week and you'll see that nothing is due this week of class, but next week when you arrive on February 9th, you will have 2 books, and it's the preface that I want you to read through on those. As you're reading through those, there's going to be questions and answers on Populi that you'll need to look at. So let's just quickly look at the books themselves. The first book is called Ministering Cross-Culturally by a man named Sherwood Lingenfelter. Right? Can you guys say that with me? Lingenfelter. Right? It's a great name. He's a doctorate missiologist, mostly working with Talbot and Biola. Just a great guy. Writes a very, very, I would say, comprehensive, to the point, easy to understand cultural training book. The reason why I picked Lingenfelter's book, because I believe that Lingenfelter's book deals with the mind. It ministers to my intellect, where the other book deals more with the heart. That's why I've got 2 books up there. Lingenfelter's book, we use it for all of our short-term teams. At least when I was missions pastoring at my home church, I used this as my training for short-termers that go out. Well, it works with short-term. It also works with long-term, because all you do is you take the short-term training and you extend that out to a lot more trials, a lot more challenges in a longer time. And that's why this book to me is priceless. It can be used for a weekend or a 10-year missionary adventure. Either one of them. This is the basics. If we don't understand this book and these simple things, we'll stumble and we'll become so confused, frustrated. The enemy will come in and cause us simply to give up. So this book is the first key that unlocks those cultural things that will keep you from becoming successful. When I used this book in a short-term missions training in Mexico with Americans that would go down to Mexico for 2 or 3 weeks, and we'd go through a whole series of training with Jeff Jackson and the other group that's there, and I used this book. A man came to me. I think he was from Virginia. His wife was from Minnesota. And he came to me and he goes, Rob, I was ready, in a sense, my marriage was dissolving. This book saved my marriage. So it wasn't just a cross-cultural thing. It was a male-female thing. It was a north-south thing. It was an east-to-west thing. It's just how we think, what we think about, what we're rigid on, what we stand on our own ground and saying, you know what, none of those things matter. What does the Word say? How can I be a servant? How can I be more like Jesus? So this book is so practical. We've seen it work across the board. That's why I want you to start with it with culture. Now, there are a lot more books in the future if you go long term, but this book is essential. It's going to speak to your mind. It's going to make things easy to understand. The second book is called Cross-Cultural Connection by Dwayne Elmer. Cross-Cultural Connection is the book that my friend Jeff Jackson recommended, and this one I believe speaks more to the heart. It speaks to the mind, but it goes deeper into the heart and to the emotions. This is why I want you to use 2 books simultaneously. Some of us are left brain, some of us are right brain, some of us are a little bit of both, because every one of us is built differently by God. That's why we're doing 2 books, so that we can see it from 2 different perspectives. And when you're dealing with culture, you're dealing with the unknown, you're dealing with the unseen. So the more of a reservoir you can have in your heart and in your mind of the things that you're going to be challenged by, the greater your potential of success is going to be. That's why I'm giving you 2 books that come at it from 2 different ways, but they're teaching the same thing. But as you're playing back and forth between the 2 in your mind and then doing the questions and answers throughout the week, you just be ready for God to open up a whole new part of the world for you. I so wish I had these books before I went overseas. Now, I didn't have them until I got back from my first 4 years overseas, which was pretty crazy. We did order some. They're in the back. If you need them and you need to start tonight, just put some cash in there, put a check in there, put an IOU. I don't care. We're students. I know your number. I've got your email. I'll come find you. Either way, make sure you start reading these books by next week. When class starts, you're going to need to have these certain schedules read. Now, in Populi, under our class, you'll see the tab that says assignment. Under the assignment tab, you'll see that there are dates. And so the assignment for next week, which would be due on February 9th, that is going to be the one that you click on. It's under test or under assignment. And when you click on that, it will show you what you need to read and the questions you need to answer. Now, the way we have this set up is most of them are available right now. So if you want to read ahead a couple weeks, feel free to do that. You don't have to read next week in a week. You can read all now. I think when I took this screenshot, we had 2 weeks up. I think now we're at 4 weeks. So just feel free to get started right away, but you will not be able to take these tests up until, or I should say, you can take them up until 1 minute before class starts. But right at 7 p.m. when we come into class and class starts, then this part of the computer system will be closed for that week. So make sure you get them done on time and you have them ready before you come to class. Or you could even come early and do them here as long as you give yourself enough time. We have a library. You can do whatever works best for you. So this is just an example of one of the tests. We've made it in a way that some of them are multiple choice, which is easier. And as you're reading through, and if you've just read the book, these questions and answers are right out of the book. We quote the book, so it's not going to be a difficult thing. But other things are matters of the heart, and they can't be a multiple choice. So sometimes it'll be A, B, or C, yes or no. Other times it will be fill in the box and just give me a couple lines on what God's doing in your heart, because we want to let the Lord dig out of you what needs to come out and to put into you what He wants to put in. And so that's why we've gauged the test in this way. Any questions on the test or on how to use the computer system? You guys are all returning students. It's all pretty simple. Okay, great. I don't see any hands going up. Yes?
I just have one more question.
Okay.
I ordered my books on Amazon and I haven't received them yet.
Right.
Is there any way to make up that first week reading assignment questions? I don't know if
The best thing to do, if you've ordered your books and they haven't come, which I knew would be a huge delay, it always happens, take a book with you tonight. Just treat it gently. Read it and bring it back next week. Right, with your book. So anybody that needs a book tonight, there should be books back there. Now, of course, the credit students first, because you guys are getting graded. Audit students second, if there's books left over. Does that make sense? Okay? And if you haven't ordered, you need to buy them, because this is a big part of your thing. Any other questions on books and readings? I'm just letting the silence fall just for fun. Just having fun with you guys. With attendance and late work, all of that is done through the office. With attendance, Shane is taking attendance for us as our teacher's aide. If somebody is absent, they need to work that through the office. Don't email me about absences or late homework, because I don't have the authority to work through that. That's all done through the office. This is the 4th page of your syllabus, and you'll see that you need to be in every single class. That's the policy of the college. You must be in the class, and if you're not, you must get a hold of the registrar's office here at the school. Now, there will be somebody in there when we come to class, and so they've set up the registrar's office that it opens up the first class, which is 10 a.m. in the morning, and it stays open all day until about 7:15 p.m. when our classes start in the evening. So you can come early to class and visit the registrars. You can call them on the phone. You can email them, however you want. They will be there for you. And then late homework must be done through the office as well. And you can see there are just a couple guidelines. First, do the assignment. Second, submit it to the office. And then if it's done right, then you'll just receive 80%. If it's done well, you can't receive 100, you'll receive 80. So be very, very careful with those kinds of things. Questions on that at all? All right. An extra credit book. If you want to read one of the best biographies ever, I put this on all of my classes. It's the biography from a man named Bruce Olson, or his nickname with the tribes that he worked with is Bruchko, because they couldn't say Bruce Olson, so they called him Bruchko. That's where the name comes from. He's an American that boarded a plane at 17 years old and landed, I think it was in Argentina or somewhere, just way out in the jungle, and just walked into the jungle and almost died a million times. I mean, the story will literally shake you to the core. And then now, because of what he did by himself with no training and no preparation, just pure spiritual tenacity. Just get in and get the job done and never give up. Because of that, 12 totally unreached head-hunting tribes are no longer unreached. They're all born again, and now they're reaching all the other neighboring tribes around them. Before he got there, everybody said, if you go into those tribes, they will kill you. And of course, as soon as he went in, they shot him with arrows and they tried to kill him, and then all these things went on. So it's a great book. Even if you don't use it for the class and you want an incredible read, read it. And then if you really like it, I've got another 10 just like it from different missionary biographies that I would love to send you. I have a whole list of them. Like when you're going to go on the field, I'll give you the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, all my favorites. Continuing on with credit, that was extra credit with Bruchko, not required. We also have an extra credit dinner at the end of the semester that gives you 5 credits. So let's say you're late to class or you miss an assignment and you just need to make it up. We have our extra credit dinner, and all of you that have been a part of that, you know it's wonderful. I didn't have the picture for level 2. This was our picture for level 1, which was the Ethiopian food. Level 2, we go to Nepali food or Himalayan food, and I didn't have the photo to put in there, but it's just like that. It's totally crazy looking, and it's the best tasting food you've ever had. And by the end of this 15 weeks, we're going to be a family. And the best way to end this family gathering is to sit down and eat and be together. And so that will be a 5 credit extra thing that you can do to be a part of the missions program if you need that. If you don't, everybody does it anyways. And we try to keep it pretty inexpensive. Now, short-term missions trips. For the year of 2016, we have 4 short-term trips. The first 2 are to Mexico. These are going to be weekend trips. As you can see, they're only 2 or 3 days. I believe you either meet here on Friday morning or you meet here on Saturday morning. We'll send out announcements on as that plays out. That would be in March 11th through the 13th, and then again in May. Both of those trips are weekend trips. You meet, you drive over the border, you stay at a church that's down there run by all nationals, so this is all done in a way that helps the people. It's not just a bunch of Americans coming in and pushing their agenda on somebody. The nationals are leading it, and we're a part of what they're already doing. So we're talking about just some very poor areas. It's crazy that some of the poorest places on the planet are right over our border. And I would say if you've never been on a missions trip, just simply go. Don't pray about it. Don't wait, don't delay, just go. Just get down there, spend a weekend, and watch the Lord revolutionize you. First time I went to Mexico, it was many years ago, 22 years ago, I came back and thought, I'm never leaving America again. That was totally insane, right? Then I went to India, and that's when the Lord really changed my life in the slums of Bombay and Calcutta and all those areas for 2 weeks. Then I came back, I'm like, Mexico's a dream. I should go there all the time. Long story short, just get your feet wet. Just go down there and love people. Love your team. Serve the local people. You don't need to learn a new language. There'll be translators. Just get out there and be a part of it. So 2 opportunities, and I think the cost is like $50. It's, gas and a little bit of food. There's no cost involved. I mean, you can save that much money and prepare for that. So we'll be sending out emails with more details, but those are the tentative dates for now. I don't personally lead those teams. Another man named James Flores leads those teams. He is on fire for this stuff. This is what he does. I'm not a short-term missionary. Personally, I'm a long-term missionary, and so I lead long-term teams. I don't lead short-term. So James came in, and he took that part, and he's doing a great job with it. I just met with him, and we had a great time. So the first 2, Mexico. The second 2 are going to be in Haiti. I'm sorry, the third, not the second 2. The third one will be in Haiti in July. So this will be between the semester we're in now and the winter semester. So in between spring and winter semester, we're going to have a trip to Haiti. I don't know the cost on that, but I'm assuming it's right around $1,000. It's not a lot, but it's more than Mexico because you got to fly there and you spend more time there and there's more outreach. So somewhere around July 9th through the 15th is the tentative date for Haiti. Now, you guys remember before the massive earthquake in Haiti, what was it, 4 years ago? It was already the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And then a huge earthquake hit and made it even worse because all their construction was bad. These people have been suffering forever. And the primary reason for their suffering is voodoo. It's voodoo. 96% of all Haitians would claim to be Christians, right? But 90% of all those people worship at the voodoo temple. So in one hand, they're saying, we believe in Jesus, and they go to church. And then if their kids get sick, they don't pray for their kids at the church. They take them to the witch doctor and they perform voodoo on them. So it's this weird thing, we call it syncretism, where they take one mindset, voodooism, if that's even the right way to say it, and then they take Christianity and they synchronize them together, and it's all mixed up. So they call themselves Christians, but most of them don't know the word. They've never truly understood the word, and they've never seen Christianity truly lived out. That's why it's so poor. That's why it's so broken. Dominican Republic, right next to it, doesn't do that, and it's a whole nother world, and they're on the same little island. They're divided in half. One side's devastated by voodoo, the other side is not devastated because they don't worship the devil outright. The president of Haiti many years ago said the devil is the ruler of this country, straight out. He said it straight out. Like we would say, God bless America, and in God we trust in our bills. In Haiti, he would say, in Satan we trust, straight out. And it's crazy, totally crazy. That's why it's so bad. So that's the third trip to Haiti. Go down there, spend a week, let the Lord change you forever and change somebody else's life temporarily, but you'll come home and you'll be changed forever. And then the fourth trip, which is a little different of a date, is at the end of the year, the day after Christmas, we've got a team going to Africa. This team is going to be from our Bible college and also from Calvary Chapel West Grove and from some other communities, I think, Calvary and Riverside. And three of us, the two Calvaries and the college, will get together and we'll go to Uganda. And this is northern Uganda. This is a part of Uganda where they're not Christianized, because most of Uganda has a lot of Christianity. The part we go to is in the very north, where there's almost no Christians at all, 98% Islamic. So as you go into this area, you're going to go into a Christian ministry run by national Christians, and they have a hospital, they have a school, they have a group home for girls that are coming out of prostitution, they've got a group home for boys that live on the streets, and all of the things that go along with that. A lot of ministries going on in these areas. This trip will totally, completely revolutionize you. It will be the most expensive because you got to fly the furthest. You guys realize that most of the money is in the plane ticket. And we don't build in a bunch of money into our trips, just so you know. We don't make them $4,000 when it really costs $2,000. That's ridiculous. We keep it as low as possible. So you have it the whole year. You've got 11 months to save the money, to begin to pray about it, and to connect with James, the office, and all of that. So you'd leave the day after Christmas. You'd spend New Year's with our brothers and sisters in Africa, and then you'd come home sometime around January 8th, and college doesn't start up again for another 3 weeks. So if you're a full-time student, this is a perfect trip for you.
More or less how much would it cost? More
Oh, you know, it depends. I believe on the day after Christmas, the flights go down by 1,000. So I'm going to say this trip's going to be closer to 3,000, because the round trip is normally 2,000 to 2,500, just the flight by itself. That's the hardest thing, just to get to Uganda from California. Yeah, but we buy our tickets in bulk, we do it early, we get the best prices possible and all that. And then I didn't mention, but there is training involved in the Haiti trip, and there's training involved in the Uganda trip. The Mexico trips, just kind of meet in the parking lot, pray, do a little devotion, but the other ones where you're going to be together for weeks, there's some team things that need to be addressed, there's some do's and don'ts that you'll need to know. So if you really want to do that and be a part of that, please be aware that those things are available for you. Now, just a little bit about me. If you haven't been in my class before, I was born and raised here in Orange County, and about junior high, early junior high time, my dad split. My dad and my mom, they broke up, and so that just created just anger and all kinds of rebellion in me. And so I turned to drugs and all the other things that destroy somebody's life. And then I got saved and sober as a freshman in college, and then I got saved. I got sober as a senior in high school, and I got saved as a freshman in college. And at that time, the Lord said, now just go witness to everybody that you've ever sold drugs to or ruined their life. Go share with them what you've really found. And so the first person I shared with was my brother. And then, of course, I met my wife during that time. She's rededicating her life, teaching me how to pray because I didn't even know how to pray, didn't know how to read the word. She's teaching me that. So we witnessed to my brother. My brother gets saved, and this little church just starts, just like this. This just happens. We had no plan. We had no master, demographic studies, and we were going to do this. We just loved Jesus. We witnessed to all the druggies that we knew, and before you know it, God saved a bunch of them, and the church started. So that's where my beginning in ministry happened. So I served at that church for about 10 years, and people came through our church about every 2 or 3 years and talked to us about missions. And I can remember being the sound man in the sound booth in the back thinking, I'm not the senior pastor, I'm not the missions pastor, I'm just the guy in the sound booth. And as these people would be speaking, God would just literally break open the ceiling of the church and shine the light on me and say, I'm calling you out of your comfort zone and I'm going to use you overseas. And I thought, I'm losing my mind. What are you talking about, Lord? That's not for me. Long story short, after 10 years of serving at home and working construction and doing all that and starting, a small family, my child wasn't born until we lived overseas, but all of that started here in America. And then God said, just pick it up. Move out of the house, get rid of the cars, and move to a refugee camp in Africa. So that's what we did. So we spent 4 years living in a refugee camp in the Stone Age, and there's no other way to describe it. We went from space age to Stone Age. Talk about culture shock. That was the greatest culture shock I could ever even want to be a part of, and we had zero training. So when the Lord allowed me to raise up nationals to take over the work, which they do it 10 times better than I do, and brought me back here, he spoke to my heart and said, bring cultural training to Calvary Chapel, because so often we don't do training, right? We know the word, we love the Lord, we love everybody around us, and we take our Hawaiian shirt and our flip-flops, right? And our New King James Bible, and we go overseas and think it's going to be just the same. The theory that we have is, as a Calvary person, just throw a dove over the pulpit, open up the Bible, right? With your flip-flops, and it'll all just be the same. It doesn't work that easily. Now, the ideas and the concepts are the same. It's about Jesus. It's about love. It's about His Word. All of those foundational concepts are absolutely rock bottom. We can't replace those. But culturally, we've got to do it differently. We have to be sensitive. We have to become learners. Learn about them so they can understand who we are. We can understand who they are. And then the Lord will start to do revival. This normally takes years. So my wife and I learned it the hard way. And praise the Lord for God's grace, we made it through. And so my first daughter, which is here with us in the class, her name is Hannah. She was born in America because we had high-risk pregnancies previously, but she grew up in Africa. So she's my African American, my blue-eyed, blonde-haired African American. She spent her first 3 years in a refugee camp with a whole bunch of little kids. It came to a certain point where she was about 2 years old, and we were home on furlough for Christmas, and she saw a picture of herself on her grandmother's refrigerator. And it was a picture of her, the little American girl, sitting next to one of her little African friends, and she said, Mom, I white, he black. What's the deal? She had no idea she was white. She thought she was African because all of her friends were that. So the Lord allowed us to be a part of that. So then, and I'll tell a lot more stories about that when we do our culture stuff. When we moved back here, after the Lord said, you've laid the foundation, you've taught the word, you've brought your Africans through Bible college, it's time for them to lead, come back to the States. When we came back to the States, then we had 2 more, and right when my second one was about 6 months old, the Lord said, now leave America for another time and move to Sri Lanka. This was just after the tsunami took place. We did short-term trips to the tsunami regions. This would be right near India. Sri Lanka is just below India, and moved to Sri Lanka. And so then we raised all 3 of our kids there. And so I call my second one, which is named Lila, and my third one, which is named Judah, my Asian Americans. So 1 African American, 2 Asian Americans. That's kind of my family's history. In all of those missions experiences, we trained nationals. That's what we did. We didn't plant churches ourselves because we lived in very extremely cultural places. It wasn't like living in a big city in India or a big city in Africa where you can, as an American or as a white-skinned Westerner, plant a church. I was in remote places where if I was to plant a church, it would have messed up the social system within the churches. So we trained up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 nationals at a time. When we were in Sri Lanka, we worked with Gospel for Asia. So I was able to pour into 100 nationals at a time. Each of them planted 2 churches a year. I mean, talk about a blessing. There I am with multiple languages. In Sri Lanka, there's two main people groups. So there's two languages going on. We created a translation system where I would speak into a microphone. We called it Chuck Smith speed. Praise the Lord, right? So you speak in this microphone, and then my two translators would wear headphones, hear it in English. They would speak into two other microphones, which then would translate into Tamil and Sinhalese, the two languages. And so the whole audience was filled with people with headphones. So when you sat down, if you were Sinhalese, you plugged it in here. If you were a Tamil, you plugged it in over here. So everybody's listening to it. They're taking notes in their own languages, and we're just walking them through the Word, walking them through the Word. And I barely said anything. All I could do was read it and barely commented on it. Kind of like J. Vernon McGee. You guys have heard J. Vernon McGee. He doesn't say a lot. He just has a little bit. I'd say a little bit, and I'd watch their eyes open up. We've never heard such things in our lives, right? 150 degrees, thick tropic humidity. You're sweating the entire time, and they were just 12 hours a day. Praise the Lord. Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah, I'm exaggerating. It felt like 15, but it was more like 8. Pouring into nationals. So that's who I am as your teacher. Lived in Africa for many years, lived in Asia for many years, trained up nationals, did my best to be culturally sensitive. It's always a continual learning phase. And so now I lead a ministry called Ends of the Earth. Ends of the Earth is from Acts chapter 1. Jesus says, go into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and then to the uttermost parts, or to the ends of the earth. And so the ministry that I lead now has 21 nationals on staff full-time that are in the ministry, doing the work of the ministry, and we just started the new Bible college last week. I was actually supposed to be in Africa, but things moved around. My African leaders took it. We started a new Bible college in one of the largest refugee camps in the world. It's one of the most exciting things we've ever done. We're going to reach Somalia, North Sudan, Darfur, Congo, Ethiopia, parts of South Sudan that are totally unreached, with about 21 or 22 students. So we've got full-time staff, and now another Bible college with another full-time students. We're hoping that in 10 years from now, we won't just be in one country, South Sudan, permanently. We'll be in about 5 or 6 countries. And these are countries that I can't even visit with my skin color and with my passport. Places like Somalia, it's illegal for me to be there. Somalis that get saved are executed immediately if they're found out. If I walk into the area, I'm going to destroy everything. So I'm training Somalis to go into Somalia and start these underground churches. We'll talk more about that. And there's some great books I just read about how that's all playing out. So that's our ministry. We do have stuff on Facebook. All the photos that I'm going to show you during this class and during this time is going to be found on Pinterest. So if you go on my website and you click on the Pinterest and you say, I need some of those cultural photos, I want to put them on my wall and pray for those people, I want to show them at my church, my Bible study, I want to tell stories about those people, you can find all of that. I think I just looked, I have 1,000 Pinterest images, and almost every one of them is a cultural person in an unreached area, just so that when we see them, God rips our heart out, that we can then touch them permanently. So the website has all of that, plus all the trainings and everything else that we're talking about. Most of that's already on the website in audio form, and we're bringing up more and more stuff as we go through. So if you need my website's address, it is EEM, which is Ends of the Earth Ministries 1040, because of the 1040 window. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about understanding our cultural identity. So let's take 5, and we will come back right at 8:05.